So what's in a tomato bomb? You'll see we've got a few layers. It doesn't need to be layers like this. This is just how I started packaging it, and now it's what my customers have come to expect. But we've got the first ingredient here. Excuse my dirty hands. We were just out in the garden planting. First ingredient here is worm castings. So worm castings are a worm poop. You know how Eskimos have like 100 different words for snow? Well, farmers have 100 different words for poop. And castings is another word for poop. So pure worm poop. Good castings are going to have a lot of good microbial life in them, some worm eggs. And microbial life is really important for building healthy soil. The microbes within the soil are what transform the raw fertilizers into usable materials for the plants. So unlike synthetic fertilizer, organic fertilizers need to be converted into usable materials to the plants. So you're breaking down the fertilizer into smaller pieces that the plant can then take up. And that's the job of the soil food web or soil microorganisms. And so worm castings are a great way to infuse a lot of good microorganisms into your soil to do that processing. So boom, worm castings. Then there's an all-purpose organic fertilizer. All-purpose fertilizer is going to have this NPK. NPK is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And those are called macronutrients. What we're talking about, what horticulturalists and gardeners talk about, the macronutrients, they're talking about these three numbers right here: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And an all-purpose fertilizer, these three numbers are going to be balanced, more or less balanced. I know that 3 and 4 and 5 do not equal each other, but they're close. They're all within balance. So we like Eviestone brand. There's lots of good brands of organic all-purpose fertilizers, and just use one that has these three numbers that are somewhat within a good balanced range. The other thing we add in the tomato bomb is bone meal. So bone meal, you'll see not a whole lot of nitrogen. It's got a lot of phosphorus. And another nutrient that's not considered a macronutrient by the horticulture community, but is very important, is calcium. That's the main thing that the bone meal is doing, is adding a good source of calcium. If you've ever grown tomatoes in the past and they've had a rot on the bottom of them, that's called blossom end rot. Blossom end rot is the result of calcium not making its way to the fruit when the fruit is forming when it needs it. So that can be either a calcium deficiency or a watering deficiency. We want to make sure there's enough calcium in there for the calcium to get where it needs to go. But also inconsistent watering can contribute to blossom end rot, because all of the nutrients and calcium are transported in the plant via its vascular system, so via water. So if there's not sufficient water to get the nutrients where they need to go, then you can also end up with fertility issues that might not have to do with the content of the fertility in your soil, but have to do with your watering schedule. So make sure your tomatoes are getting consistent water so that those nutrients can go where they need to go. But bone meal, great source of calcium. And we also have alfalfa meal in the tomato bomb. Alfalfa meal is mainly for a good source of nitrogen. We've also got a little bit of potassium in here to kind of balance out this bone meal's lack of potassium. And alfalfa meal is a nice, organic, low carbon footprint way of adding nitrogen. So a lot of synthetic nitrogens are derived from oil and things like that. And with the rising price of oil and things going on in the world right now, kind of makes sense to go with organic sources of nitrogen. Another really good one is fish meal, or even a fish head, which we have done in the past. The fish meal at this point is getting a little bit more expensive and hard to find organic. So alfalfa meal is a good sub. And it's what we use in the garden. It's what we use in the tomato bomb, and it works really well as a good source of nitrogen. So those are the main ingredients in our tomato planting recipe. You can check out a full guide for planting tomatoes with some alternatives on our website. Just comment below for that link.